Hi there, welcome back to another small ramble with me, writer and mental health advocate Tobe Allen. I'm also one half of the BARROW Podcast, the show I record with my mum, where we discuss divorce, dysfunctional families and mental illness while attempting to write a memoir together. Well, not attempting, we are writing a memoir together. Self-narratives, okay, so we always talk about narratives on the podcast, and I have mentioned self-narrative before. Obviously, the stories we tell each other, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. I've also talked about self-esteem, self-confidence, self-belief, self-narratives. So do you have a positive or negative kind of view of yourself? I was speaking about narratives that can creep in when we get a mental health diagnosis. I've mentioned that before. Self-narratives also dictate, our sense of whether we're lucky or unlucky. I was listening to, what was I listening to? I was listening to a podcast. I think it might have been Diary of a CEO, which is that really big podcast. It's quite a good one. Always have good interviews on that one. And I heard it was a reporting on like a study that had been conducted on how people view themselves. And apparently there are, well, according to one of these people that was on that show, there's kind of three strong self-narratives that come through. Not saying that they're the only ones necessarily, but that people kind of conceptualize themselves as heroes or healers or victims. And basically, hero or healer is obviously on the positive side of things and victim is on the negative side of things. But regardless of the archetype that you might view yourself to be, this affects how you perceive luck. And I found this really astonishing, but it also made sense of, when I did the video on receiving and processing a diagnosis, like a mental health diagnosis, like what I've had, where I've been labeled things like PTSD, borderline personality disorder, ADHD, I've definitely viewed that as unlucky, right? And I've gone, oh no, and I guess I'm a monster, I guess I'm a freak, I guess I'm a blah blah. So anyway, there was a study done, and there was this test that I heard about, where basically the people comprising the study group, they were given a newspaper, and the goal was to flip through the newspaper and identify how many images are in the newspaper. Now, on the 8th or 9th page, though, there was an advertisement taken out inside the newspaper. Obviously, it's a test, it's a fake newspaper, but on the 8th or 9th page, there was a big, like an advertisement saying, stop reading, there are 42 images inside this newspaper. Now, the people who had a lucky outlook, when they were asked, do you feel lucky? Are you lucky? The people who said that they were lucky saw the advert and stopped reading. The people who had identified themselves as unlucky, no, I don't feel lucky, when asked that question, did not read that advert, or if they did, they didn't stop reading the newspaper. And they went on to count the images all the way through to the end, and obviously getting various results, like, not getting 42 images, coming up with different numbers. The point being that your perception of whether you're lucky or not was dictating your reception and or perception of opportunity. So people who thought they were lucky saw that ad and said, gee, I'm lucky. I can close the newspaper. There's 42 images in it. People who thought that they were unlucky either didn't see the ad or saw it, didn't trust it, and kept going, and went on, in some cases, to make mistakes. I thought that was just so interesting, right? Like, if you see yourself as a victim and you have that mindset of, like, it doesn't matter what I do, everything's against me, the world's against me, I have no luck, everything goes wrong for me, you will not perceive opportunities. You will miss opportunities. And chances are you make things harder for yourself. When you make things harder for yourself, you're more inclined to make mistakes. Mistakes lead to failure. And then there's that feedback loop. Things go wrong. I'm unlucky. I'm a victim. But just that perception, lucky, unlucky, was unlocking the world or closing the world off. Unlocking opportunity because you thought that you were lucky. No opportunities because you're not lucky, so there's none. I'm reeling from this because for anyone who's been watching these videos or following the podcast, then you know that this year, over the next 12 to 18 months, I'm on this journey of trying to improve my mental and physical health. And I'm really challenging these self-narratives that I have. And I have to admit, I really have had a pretty negative view of myself and of the world for a long time. And it's been an unlucky view of myself and the world. I know I've missed opportunities. Looking back, I can see it now. I'm like, oh, I wasn't even aware. I wasn't even thinking. And being closed off, being a victim, being small, being negative, it makes your world a really lonely place to be in, It makes life really hard. Everything feels hard. I'd probably be getting the same amount of work done. In fact, I'm certain I'd be getting more work done if I was more relaxed, more open, more positive. And I know this, right? So how do you change it? I definitely am aware that I've gone into things with a really defeatist mindset in the past. Like, I'll put in an application for something and just be like, no, it'll never work out anyway, Which surely affects the application you submit, thinking that you're not going to get it. And as I've gotten older, I've become increasingly more easily discouraged. So, that's not going to work out. I can't be bothered with that. Or I apply for something and get one rejection, so I don't apply to the 5 other things I intended to. One person says no, they can't make it for dinner, so I don't bother, trying to see someone else that same day or rescheduling with that person. Like, oh, well, no one wants to see me. I have these kind of defeatist tendencies that far exceed the feedback I'm being given. And I know that my mindset affects my perception. There was something very recent that I'd gotten a response, and the response from the person in question was neutral. It was a completely neutral response, which was like, I'm happy to work with you, but further down the road. So it wasn't a rejection, but because it wasn't an overwhelming, yay, I love you, let's go for it, I perceived it as a rejection. And I even read a rejection into this neutral response, and it wasn't there. It wasn't there to read. I got really down. I lost half a day. And then I came back out of my funk and read the email again. And I was like, that wasn't negative. That wasn't a rejection. Self-narratives. Maybe I'll talk about negativity in the next one. Yeah. I'm going to leave this here. If you have any stories similar to this, or you want to add to what I've said, you want to talk about your own self-narratives and how you've maybe combated negative ones, and what the effects of your self-narrative has been on perception, opportunity, all that sort of stuff. Do you feel lucky? Punk? Do you? Leave a comment. As always, if you found what I've just said interesting, you'll definitely enjoy the Barrow Podcast. Further information and links can be found in the description to today's video, as well as on the homepage to this YouTube channel. Until next time, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, bye.